why do some companies stand out while others seem to merely show up? That's what we'll explore with leaders across multiple industries to hear how they're creating better experiences by design. And now your host, Susan Quinn.
The ability to communicate with clarity and confidence is honestly one of the most important skills in leadership. And yet we have moments where we question ourselves. I'm joined by Eleni Kelakos, a former actress who is now a speaker, a coach, and author of several books. She's known as the speaker whisperer, and she's helping leaders find their soul role so that they can show up with confidence and a powerful presence. This is a conversation worth everyone's time, especially if you're looking to strengthen your voice as a leader. Eleni, welcome to Better Experiences by Design. I am beyond excited to have you with us today.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. This has been long in coming in some respects, and I always enjoy speaking with you. So we get to actually do this in a formal manner today, an informal manner today.
Well, I love the power of the written word, but also the spoken word, and had a great opportunity to hear you speak, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I don't even remember. But when someone captures me the way you did when you got up and spoke to the audience that day, we connected at that point. I said, I don't know where it's going to happen, but I want to read your books, and I would love for you to be a guest on the podcast. So here we are today.
Here we are. I'm very excited.
Well, let's give our listeners, you have had a very successful career in theater and film and TV. I mean, you are a real person on stage, and you know what it means to command the stage. And I hope that that's what we can share with our listeners today, because we have many industries across the U.S., most in professional services, but communication is so powerful, and I know that that's what's important to you. Can you give us a background? How did we get here today? And tell us a little bit about that story.
Well, thank you for asking me that question, because it's one of my favorite stories to tell. I started out as an obsessive actress in New York City and Los Angeles. I always, as a kid, I was that little diva kid. I loved getting up there and singing or whatever, just being in front of a little group. When I discovered it, really, when I was quite young, that there was such a thing as getting on a stage, I just went for it. And I wound up, long story short, once I graduated from college, I went to Brown University and I graduated in theater arts and semiotics. I went to New York City immediately, because I just was a theater baby. I had been doing theater my whole life, and I felt that was the place for me to go. And there were so many things that could get in your way, especially in an audition situation, right? Because you're walking into a scenario where you're being judged. And if you have any trepidations, any fears or anxieties, if you're thinking something like, I'm too tall to be cast, if you're thinking something like that, they're going to feel it. You're going to exude that. So I had to learn how to show up in those spotlight moments consistently and with confidence. And I went to master level teachers in New York City to help me do that. I knew I needed some help overcoming some of the inner yakety yak that my little judges, I call them Mo and Schmo, that they were flinging at me, so that I could be of use and value to myself and honor my talents and gifts in the spotlight moments and honor the material that I was given, right? In an audition situation, just like it would be if you were getting up to give a presentation or you were making a pitch for a product or a service, you're there to honor the material at hand and to be of service to the audience itself, right? You're there to help them into what you're doing and make the most of that time. And I learned a few things. Took me a while, but that element of consistency and ease began to be a large part of what I did. And it helped me get cast. It helped me keep a level head in a really rough business. And when I morphed into being a touring singer and songwriter, sort of tangentially, but also it was something I could control. When I began to put myself out on stages left and right using my voice and my words, the songs I'd written, I had this foundational background as an actor, right? That helped me really show up in those moments too. So I knew I had something. I knew I had something there. I knew that I had tools and techniques that worked for me. And 23 years ago, when I moved to Michigan to be with my man, Jim, I thought, you know what? I've been on the road a lot. I have a new step family. I have a new marriage. I'd like to find a way to be here more than on the road. And I thought, I bet I can use the things that I've learned to help other people, executives, people who have to use their words to make a difference in some way, to help shape a vision, put it out there. I bet I can help them find their way, step with maybe less anxiety and more joy even into spotlight moments. And so if you build it, they will come. That's how I am here now with you today. And so much has occurred in these 2 decades, right? That has allowed me to even be able to talk to you with a sense of authority around what I've accomplished.
Well, that was a powerful story to begin with. And we are going to dig deep on how you taught yourself and now guiding others to show up consistently and with confidence. 2 powerful words. And you mentioned early on at 6 feet tall, second guessing yourself, the little voices in our head that are saying, oh, you can't do that, that then brings the energy of the trepidations. And those are very real things. So I want to unpack that at a deeper level. How do you teach others to show up consistently and with confidence? How does that even begin to take place?
Well, first and foremost, they need to want to. Okay, so whoever I'm going to work with, and I work as a coach, and I do group training work within corporations, and I'm a speaker. Myself, I'm out there as a keynote speaker. When I'm working with someone individually, let's say, first thing first, I have to make sure that they are open to making change. I knew when I went to the classes that I did in New York City in particular, I was open to growing and developing myself and being the best that I could be. This matters a lot. So I have to know that someone is willing to make that shift. But once that happens, the first thing I do is go in there and figure out what's holding them back. You got to take a look at what's going on underneath. And typically, it's what I call the lies that bind you. It's limiting beliefs that are causing limiting behaviors very often. Things like, I'm a terrible presenter and no one wants to listen to me, or I don't have enough experience or expertise to get up in front of a group and share my voice, or I messed up before, it's going to happen again. It's that kind of a thing that can begin to rob you of what I call your charismatic presence, right? Your charismatic presence is the essence of who you are. In fact, I've written a book about it called Charismatic Presence. And I define your charismatic presence, by the way. I might as well read it from the book because it's so clear. It's your dynamic life force fully activated in the present moment. It's the kind of all senses go, ease, aliveness, and authenticity that makes people want to look at you, listen to you, and trust you. And I believe we're born with it. I don't think it's something that only certain people have. I feel like we've got it. And what happens is when we start to second guess ourselves or worry about what other people think of us, when we start hearing, use your indoor voice when we're little, and we start wanting to be like everyone else, when we are asked suddenly to get up and give a presentation, let's say, and we feel we've never maybe done it before or don't even know how to put it together, and we start to question ourselves, we begin to play small, and the little flappies on the charismatic presence, if you will, begin to slam shut. Our impact and our influence shrinks along with it. So I know that I have to go in first and define what those limiting beliefs are and then reframe them with them. And then we begin to look at the outside behaviors. The outside behaviors can be changed with some simple tools and techniques that can help them think differently about even how they approach the act of presenting or communicating or speaking, how they prepare as they step into the spotlight moments, what they can do when something goes wrong, because something's invariably going to go wrong. And sometimes it's the simplest things, like even just how to structure a pitch or presentation. If they don't know how to do it, how scary is that? So having some useful evergreen tools can be a way of working with someone to establish greater confidence.
You remind us of, if you think you can and you think you can't, you're right, but also the voices that start to enter into our head. But, I'm reflecting back as you're telling that story. I think of my grandchildren, and they have no problem. We do karaoke. I love music,
Yes.
and they can grab that microphone and they can sing. I'm kind of less inclined to stand up, and I speak a lot in my job, but you lose that confidence as a child, and I do think we take it away as we move into adulthood and certainly into our professional life. So let's go back to setting the stage, helping people find their voice. And I think of it in the business sense. Not everyone is a keynote speaker,
Absolutely not.
but everyone needs to lead with curiosity and a sense of authority. And even if you're an introvert, you still have a voice. So let's spend some time on how we can encourage people to, whether you are the CEO of a company or the C suite, and how much is the leadership of making sure everyone can find their voice? Because I don't think you just do it with, okay, today I want you to speak better. It seems like it is a trained approach. Am I right?
Yes, I think it is. And I just love that you asked this, that you're suggesting that we talk about this, because the truth of the matter is, leadership, in my opinion, is responsible for giving space, room, and encouragement to people who are looking up to them and the people that they work with to bring their own voices to the table. A lot of my clients are C suite clients. I always say I work with people who are making the leap into leadership and people who have made the leap and are now wanting to expand their ability to be of influence, right? And there are so many opportunities, whether it is a one-to-one conversation with someone who needs some support and mentoring, or whether it's leading a meeting. Let's say you've got a really rough patch that you're going through, and you need to be able to bring the team together and lay out a vision that will help them move through this, right? Your ability to really speak from your heart as a genuine human being, encouraging other genuine human beings to move toward that vision, is imperative. It's life and death for your company in many respects. And so I think the greatest leaders are the ones who do everything they can to encourage voice in others. And that means, by the way, we talked about this once, but I happen to be an introvert with great social skills. And you mentioned that you are introverted. The world is not necessarily made for introverts. And so extroverts get a lot of attention. That leaves a lot of introverts without voice because it's a lot harder for them, or perhaps their internal processors where they need to process within themselves and think before they speak. Oftentimes you'll have a scenario in a meeting where whoever's leading it is allowing the people who are loudest to have the biggest voice, if you will, and the biggest contribution. So the leaders who are willing to encourage, Mary, I always love what you have to say. I'd love to hear input from you on this topic, and then thank them afterwards. These are the kinds of things that encourage people to speak and share, because not everybody's out there, like me or like you on public platforms necessarily speaking. But boy, are they communicating on a daily basis at work and in the world.
If I were to summarize my career and those firms that seem to outpace others and Certainly, they have vision, they have many things, but at the core, the leadership, certainly at the very top, but throughout, communication has been a top priority, and communication of all people, and that everyone has a voice. So, just the essence and the theme of what you're saying. Not every company has anything formalized, but those who do take it seriously, I see them, which part of what we want in this community that we're building. I'm so passionate. I don't want people to just show up. I want them to stand out, authentically stand out for who they are. And I love that you want people to have a voice. I want people to have a voice. The thing of it is, if you are on stage and you've just given the keynote speech, or if you're in theater as your background, you get a sense, did people like it or not? Because they clap. We don't always get feedback.
No.
So, how do we start to gauge if people are like, okay, I want to be a little more confident, I'm going to learn, I'm going to read your books, you're going to come in and help our company look at it differently, whatever the case may be? How do we take away that fear? Did I do it well? Because I often hear when I'm coaching leaders, they'll come and say, how did I do? And I think that's the first thing that we want to know. So how do we start to gauge that?
Again, what an excellent question. I think you have to shift people's mindsets from did they like me to did I accomplish what I set out to do, which I call honoring your intention. I teach my clients, I teach them what I call the 4 questions. First of all, before they answer them, they have had to have gone into whatever that communication scenario is with a strong guiding intention, a purpose that is associated with what they're there to do on behalf of that audience. They work it out based on the audience, the challenges that the audience is experiencing that they want to illuminate, and then they come up with a statement that is what they're there to do, you know? And so I will say, so the 4 questions are based initially on that intention statement. And I will say to them, listen, you need to be able to ask yourself these questions and begin to trust yourself in guiding yourself to becoming better, moving toward mastery. So the questions are, did I solve my intention? The second question is, what went better than I expected? And people always leap over that one. They don't want to go there. They want to go to question number 3, which is what didn't go as well as I might have hoped, right? They want to just rovulate in that. They want to roll around in that and feel bad. But I always want them to first go, what went well? Celebrate it. Then, what didn't go as well as you might have hoped? And the 4th question, the most important one of all, what might I do differently the next time? That's how you get better. And if you have someone that you are working with, let's say it's a coach, okay? That's a great way to critique, self-critique and debrief with someone that is mentoring you or coaching you. It's always good to have someone whose opinion that you trust to ask these questions of. I always say, be very careful who you ask opinions of, because people will give them to you. And the fact is, people often feel obligated to, and they don't really know what to say. But also, we learn to protect ourselves within the scope of the work. I had great teachers who told me, you must be very careful who you work with. And I think that how can you get better at something, in my opinion, if you're in a vacuum around it? It helps so very much to have someone who can look at you and see you and feel you. I say, be able to help you see yourself within what I call the 3 presence planes, your verbal presence, your physical presence, and the energetic presence that you bring, that vibe that you put out, right? That's often dictated by what's going on in your head. It takes someone else sometimes to be able to help you really see, hear, and feel yourself.
That vibe, that energy is something I'm really zeroing in on in my own professional development. And I'm really keen as I look at others to see how they are entering the room.
Yes.
And back to your original comment, are you inviting me to actually listen? Do I feel a sense of trust? And so that just is, you don't just listen to one podcast and walk away and go, okay, got that, moving on to the next thing. It is a disciplined process to hit that verbal, the inner, the vibe, the energy. Do you ever get there or you just continue
No,
with the master?
you just continue. And I think that's the beauty of it. I think, great leaders, like great actors, great performers, they just keep setting that bar a little higher, and they're willing to go where they get scared. How many times have I read an article or listened to a blog or heard someone say in a position of an actor, for example, say, when they were asked, why did you take this role that's so outside of what you usually do? They're like, because it was so outside of what I usually do. It's terrifying to me to do this. I've never done a musical before, or I've never done a comic lead before. And so I said, yes, it's that. It's being willing to step into the murky middle of discomfort, which is what I call it, where you learn and grow. And that, to me, is what makes not just a good leader or a good communicator or speaker, but a great leader and a great communicator and speaker. And I always know when I'm working with a company, for example, that does a lot of training, opens themselves up to it, and I talk to the powers that be, I talk to the leaders there. Typically they'll say to me, well, I love training. I love coaching. I do a lot of it myself. I have my own coach. Or, yes, the leadership team is always doing training work, and I include myself in that. Or I read a lot. I'm constantly growing and learning. When I hear that, I know that the people in that company stand a chance of getting what they might need as well, right? Because the leadership understands the value of mastery and continuous growth and learning and development. I'm all for that. That is how actors think. That's why actors go to class in between acting gigs.
Well, and you never stop. It's that aspiring mindset. We did a book that was published last year and worked with a research firm that really looked at the 9 traits of high performing companies. And if you look at that, it's also the traits of high performing individuals. You can extrapolate. They're just every day. It's like nutrition. These are the basics that you have to do. Now you have to personalize it for you. But what is interesting is the mindsets that came out of the research. You're satisfied, you simplify, or you're aspiring. And I find that we need all 3 of those mindsets in our day life. But if one dominates, sometimes it's like, your strength can become your weakness. If you're too satisfied and you're not willing to seek the new role, then there are consequences for any or all of it. What I'd love to do is now jump to your newest book.
Yes, my newest book. My first book is Touch the Sky. My second book is Claim the Stage. And my third book is Charismatic Presence, which just came out. But these books are all coming from the same place, which is my belief that we are all sky grabbers, that we are here to manifest, if you will, and maximize our soul role, what we're here to do at the deepest level. I always think of it as, it's the marching order stamped on your little hiney when you were born. It's what you're here to do. I like to think, well, that's what's driving everything. That's what's driving your need potentially to lead, your need to lead in a specific industry, your desire to get up and speak to one or many. It is in association with that, in alignment with that. And in my opinion, it's a way of delivering on what you're here to do, right? So it's all related. The books are all related to one another. You find pieces of one another, of each of those books, in every one of those books. They talk to each other.
Anytime you are doing 3 books that continue to bring out how to be charismatic, how to do better storytelling, all the things that we know the right words, but actually take the time to do it. I think about Eleanor Roosevelt. I think she's the one that said, do one thing every day that scares you. And I think about that because if we actually dared to do that, what else could we do that brings more clarity, more confidence? And I'm just so grateful that that is part of your mission as you are helping us all build confidence to grow beyond our comfort zone, to just authentically be us.
And that's the watchword. It's authenticity. It's being authentic to what you're here to do. It's in fact, in charismatic presence, I have the 5 presence principles. The first one is know thyself. The second is be thyself. And it's essential that you're coming from this place of ownership of who you are, what you love, what you bring to the table, and celebrate it, your unique gifts and talents and abilities. And I'm always telling people, no one's you got hired for being you. I do interview skills training quite a bit. And I'm always really wanting to remind people that they don't have to be something they're not. And I'm not asking people to be perfect. I'm asking people to bring their best. To bring excellence, but not perfection, which is terribly boring. To allow ourselves to bring ourselves fully to the moment, right? All the things that we are. And that means imperfection. And we can all connect with imperfect.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really okay.
Yeah.
You talk about helping in interviews. I often will listen in an interview where someone can share those moments that weren't perfect and what they learned from those moments. I mean, that gives me a glimpse into where they are being brave, if you will.
My husband always says, if things didn't go wrong, we wouldn't have great stories to tell.
That's right. It is a process for sure. And so, as we are coming to the end of our time together, what's one thing you would recommend to people who want to do a better job of finding their voice? What should they do right now?
The first thing they need to do is identify the target, if you will. What is the spotlight moment in which you would like to shine, in which you would like to have more confidence and more consistency? And ask yourself then, what do I need to do to help myself? Do I need someone from the outside to help support me? What am I missing that I need to build upon? And then get the help that you need to do it. But I really believe, I love deadlines. And having something out there that's beckoning you, that you can work toward, is a wonderful way to help yourself over a hump. So knowing what you want, knowing what that target is, allows you to take the actions that you need to take so you can actually move forward, whether that's working with a coach or even going to someone that you're reporting to and saying, you know what, I would like a chance at our next town hall to get up in front of the group and say a few words. And then getting buy-in and then doing what it takes to get ready, to be prepared.
Don't wait to be asked to have a seat at the table, pull the chair up.
Exactly.
Yeah. Eleni, we conclude each one of these podcasts with this question. What do you do to keep sharpening your pencil and bettering your best?
Well, for one thing, I have my own coach, a business coach who pushes me hard, does not let me get complacent. But I'll tell you what I really do is I pay attention to when I feel like I'm stagnating. I am a creative. Really, in turn, I am such a creative. And I always know I get this little inner voice, could be more, could be more. And so I journal around it, I explore it, and I give myself, I think, what would turn me on? What do I need to do more of that I'm not doing? And very often that will create a new program, in my arsenal. Or it might generate a new idea for a book. But I always know, typically for me, I need to create something or birth something. And usually it's something that's going to push me a little bit.
That is so beautiful. Listening to that inner voice because you know there's more, and
Yes.
to embrace it and not fear it. That is a beautiful message to share. Thank you so much. I am grateful for our time together, and I hope we can
Me
do this again.
too. Thank you so much for having me. I know it might have taken a year and a half or so for us to arrive at this moment, but I'm so grateful that we had it.
Well, know that we will put in the show notes about your book, and if there's any other material you want to share, we will include it. But I know that everyone can benefit from your wisdom. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for being part of our Best in Class community. And until next time, keep bettering your best.